Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel simply is Discerning What is True. Today is the second day of November 2025. I am still going through a particular book here called by a gentleman uh, who just wrote quite a bit about the Kabbalah. This was called simply The Psychology and Kabbalah, and this is chapter 7, Transmigration. So I'm going to be reading in this particular chapter, so just bear with me as I change a few things over here. So the notion of reincarnation is common to many cultures and has been held since antiquity. The fact that it was officially declared a heresy by the Fifth Ecumenical Council of the Church in 553 CE, or as we used to call it AD, and that it has no place in Islamic doctrine does not invalidate it, as many examples bear witness to its reality. It was accepted widely in the Orient and among Celtic Druids in the West. Plato acknowledged it, and so did the Gnostics and Essenes. The early Christian scholars, Origen, observed that it was the only explanation to certain scripture, and many other thinkers concluded that it was the reason why some people have fortunate or unfortunate lives, irrespective of their good or evil deeds. The rationale behind this is that reincarnation was seen as the redressing of personal and universal balance carried over in a continuous sequence of lives that adjusted each fate according to merit. Out of this process emerged the lessons to be learned about the laws of existence and the purpose of that particular person's destiny. There is abundant evidence of people recalling past lives. Some are in the form of vague feelings about a certain place or period. Others are distinct and precise in their recollections, that is. A certain American general, for example, had his driver take him off the beaten track during a North African campaign to view an ancient battlefield. When asked how he knew so much about it, he replied that he was there at the time. He went on to say that he had been a soldier through all his lives over the centuries. In another case, a child in India declared that he was from another village far to the north, that he had been murdered by his wife and her lover and buried in a particular place. Subsequently, research revealed that the name of the village and man were real, and he had indeed been murdered in the way described. It has been argued that stories and facts can be relayed by gossip or can be unconsciously absorbed material, but while this occurs, the volume of facts that would not be known by the person remembering a past life is weighty. One example was a woman who recalled an old crypt in a certain church, which was later discovered during repairs of the building. And there's a figure here of what they call reincarnation. This concept was commonly accepted in the ancient world by both the civilized and the primitive peoples. It was spoken about in early Christianity until it was declared a heresy. Kabbalists regard it as a normal process of human evolution, as clearly one life is not enough to develop and work on one's karma. Karma by Kabbalists as, quote, measure for measure, end quote, the expression, the quote, the world to come, end quote. And many prayers refer not to a spiritual afterlife, but to the next reincarnation. In Hebrew prayer, moreover, the words to, quote, quicken the dead can mean to be reborn, either physically or spiritually. This is from Bosch, B-O-S-C-H, from 16th century. More recently, researchers have been collecting or collating what we call recollections of past lives in a methodological way, using the technique of hypnotic regression. In this method, the person is taken back before birth in a zone of memory that holds image of extraordinary clarity in some cases. For many, the moment of death is still very real. One person, for example, vividly recalled falling off a tent pole in her 40s at a market in ancient Iraq. Another remembered dying of an intestinal growth in the 11th century. England and another in 16th century pneumonia of old age after a rough life as a soldier. Some people recall earlier lives without being hypnotized. One individual recognized the streets of a certain old city the moment he arrived, and another had a dim recollection of lying under the rubble of a house as the Cossacks set fire to it. As might be expected, the humdrum aspect of a life are forgotten, or rather blend into a general feeling, while the more dramatic moments are deeply etched upon the memory. This suggests that the psyche, or at least some part of it, survives physical death and continues to return to experience through the post-mortem period and into the next life. One researcher using the regressive method explored a sequence of 14 lives of the same person. First, a man was moved into a state of consciousness that detached him from his physical body. When this occurs, the working of the psyche are freed from practical constraints, that is, as in dreams. Then the attention was focused by the hypnosis in a series of probing questions that explored time and place. The result was a picture of a series of historical periods that is lived through, ranging from 2000 BCE up to the 20th century CE. The detail of the conditions of some periods is quite striking, such as clothing and customs. Sometimes the person held rank and sometimes a humble position. In one life, he was preoccupied with a dying young wife. In another, he married into a wealthy family, and in another, he lived in Lebanon and enjoyed being a merchant while studying with a local sage. Later, he found himself in Greece in a homosexual relationship with a Roman, and at another time in a village of Central America around 1300 CE. During these and subsequent lives, he was sometimes a man and sometimes a woman. It was noted by the researcher that there was a predominant tendency to be male or female in a person's pattern. The subject of this experiment lived in Portugal as a woman and in Italy as a man, where he did not get on with his aristocratic neighbors. I think that should be said, he did not get along with his aristocratic neighbors. Later, he was a Welsh girl who died in childbirth after a relationship with a Spanish sailor. He could still feel the guilt and shame of the incident, I should say. These memories, like his attachment to a particular wooden spoon while living in a French peasant life, left deep marks, as did his feelings about the American colony hurting his business when he was an English wool merchant in the 18th century. Such details as these and many others indicate a complete bank of unconscious memories stored somewhere deep in the psyche. From a Kabbalistic viewpoint, all this is theoretically quite feasible, that is. The Yezoretic vehicle of the psyche is in principle exactly like the body, but in a different reality. That is, as the physical organism can store the experience of a single life and the evolution in the skills and instincts, so the psyche can hold ancient memories as well as recall the events of the present life. The psyche is just as subtle, that is, and complex as the body, and indeed processes thoughts, feelings, and actions in the same way as the body does the four elements. Dreams, for example, are part of the psyche's digestive system. The deeper memories, however, like fat or alcohol, are buried in the unconscious recesses of the psyche, only to emerge in special situations which release what is embedded there. Such events occur during analysis and certain Kabbalistic exercises. In most analysis, the analysis and only goes back in the moment of birth, although some go beyond into the prenatal situation. The implication is that what one is born with is a great deal more than a genetic typology. Kabbalah takes this longer view into account. According to tradition, the process of Gilgalim is a turning of lives. It is also called Ha-Atak Una, or transference. Generally termed transmigration, that is. The concept first appeared in the 12th century among the Kabbalists of southern France. After being opposed by the more conventional schools of Iraq, this is not unusual, as the academics can never accept what they cannot prove. The argument of the déjà vu, or already seen, as a perception warp is the most commonly used to refute, that is, a double take memories, but the volume of previous life memories far outweigh this sense-based conclusion. According to Kabbalah, all human beings originate from different parts of Adam Katman. This gives each of us a particular quality and tendency, so that we may be sympathetically inclined to this or that separal, triad, or pillar. Moreover, tradition says that individuals descend in groups of a similar kind, which remain connected at the higher levels as they pass down through the lower worlds to incarnate from time to time and perform their individual tasks. Books have been written about these groups, their relatives, or what I call their relations, and collective destinies, and identity over a sequence of lives. The most obvious has been identified by certain Kabbalists in different historical roles. For example, the patriarch Jacob is seen to return as Mordecai in the book of Esther, while the 16th century Rabbi Isaac Luria, Luria, was considered to be a reincarnation of the great mystic Rabbi Simon ben Yohai of the Roman epoch. Transmigration is seen in some cases as a corrective punishment for discrepancies in a former life, and in others as a continual process of perfection. Among some Kabbalists, it was considered a privilege to be incarnated in order to aid the Holy One, that is, Holy One bring Adam Katman into full realization through their experience. Here we see the appreciation of levels for various stages of human development have different needs and situations in order to evolve. Some people require easy condition after a hard time, others the reverse. Certain individuals have to suffer because of misdemeanors in a previous life, and others go through it with them in order to help. Many good individuals support quite evil people so as to get them out of a karmic cesspit. This process is sometimes called, I'll just spell it for you, Ibbur in Hebrew, and can apply to incarnate or disincarnate individuals who perform such tasks. All these possibilities suggest a complex situation. Each human life has its divine root, spiritual level, and psychological karma, which are the hidden part of the iceberg of the current life. The reason we are told that so few people recall any previous existence is that today is where we live and have our being. Our past lives, like yesterday and yesteryear, are background to the present for the one great couplet remark, that is, quote, sufficiently unto the day is the evil thereof. In reality, the moment, quote, now, is the only time and place we can act upon. Incarnation is necessary because out of the flesh we do not have the power to affect all the worlds and make our contribution to Adam Catman's education through a series of fates that compose the chain of our destiny. Transmigrations are part of a great design, but they are carefully planned to give the individual the maximum possibility of development. Here's the prenatal factor in any esoteric psychology, and that's chapter 7. And I won't go any further at this point. I'll do another video here in a little while. So, again, this is, hold on a second here. I hope some people really understand some of this stuff that I'm sharing, because it's kind of important to understand how one is brought up in a certain family, as I have been born into, to see, as I'm 65 years old now, believing in Christianity for a long, long time. So I know that part of me, that I see now is false. It's not true. And so it's part, I guess what I would say simply is part of my learning, or for this purpose, in discerning what is true. That is, to find out what happened in my past life. Well, I don't know what my past life is. I do know simply what is happening in my own life. And I've changed dramatically, meaning that simply I see things differently than I did when I was a 20-year-old and when I was a 40-year-old. You get the idea simply, as I get the idea simply, is that that's part of my learning while I'm here this time. But it's also simply is that let's not just stop there, let's go further, let's progress, let's move further. Since I have a teacher that is Phil Langdon, who shares with me quite a bit of what I would call wisdom, and answers some of my questions, not some of them, most of them, if not all of them, I should say. And I appreciate him very much, because he's been very good to me. He has. So I won't go any further at this point. Simply is that I just wanted to share this video with you guys. Today is November 2nd, 2025. And again, I have been reading from a particular book today, simply called Psychology and Kabbalah. Okay, well, wish you a good day. You take care. Again, my channel is Discerning What Is True. And thank you for listening, and you take care.